Hello, everyone. People, I have another great personality from our very own South Asia, Malaysia. Dr. Alvin, who is the professor and deputy dean at Sunway University, School of Medical and Health Sciences.
Life Sciences.
And Life Sciences. And he is a clinical psychologist by training, but he has shifted from his clinical practice to full-time teaching now and the admin work and the research and academics. So that's very interesting, Alvin. People who are in India would like to go into clinical practice more. So I would like to hear your story and
Right.
what is it that you would like to tell our audiences?
Okay. Well, I guess in terms of my story, why I moved from clinical practice into fully teaching and research is when I first started my career, I did everything. And I was somehow pushed into the leadership position very early on. I studied in Australia. I did my bachelor's and my doctorate in Australia, in Perth. I came back to Malaysia and I needed a job. I trained to be a clinician, so I was looking for a clinical job, didn't find one, and I thought, okay, there is a position at the university for a lecturer in clinical psychology and to help run the clinical psychology program. I decided to go for it. And within 6 months, the head died,
Oh,
and I became the head.
oh,
A very young graduate with a doctorate. And at the time, I was the only person with a doctorate in clinical psychology.
So,
So
all the
automatically,
responsibilities came on you.
I had seniority with regards to my qualification.
Okay.
And I took on that role as being the head of the health psychology unit. And I was tasked with developing a master's in clinical psychology program. And this was 22 years ago.
Oh.
Yes. So that was how I got into academia. At that time, when I was at the National University of Malaysia, UKM for short, I was running the master's program in clinical psychology. I did the teaching, I did research, I ran the clinic, I supervised students at the clinic, I supervised research, I did
So
my own
much
research.
work at such young age.
Lots of work.
Yeah.
I also saw my own clients.
My
At
God.
the same time, because you have to do outreach,
Yeah.
I went and gave tons of talks. People walking by, that's fine, just ignore. This is a conference. Yes. Yes, and there are more people walking by now, it's okay. And this is exactly conference scene. Yes,
Yeah.
we keep it natural, right? Okay,
For
anyway,
you all.
back to my story.
Yeah.
So I started out doing all these things, and I was lucky to have a few mentors because, fresh graduate,
Yeah.
blind leading the blind, total greenhorn.
Yeah.
And I think I did well enough because we then was able to establish the Malaysian Society of Clinical Psychology. When I came
Wow.
back, I felt that I needed the support. And there wasn't such a support in Malaysia at the time. We had the Malaysian Psychological Association. That was more of an interest group rather than a regulatory body like the APA and the APS, BPS, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And they didn't seem to be interested in regulating at the time. They were not interested. And for me, if there's nothing there, I'm not the kind of person to wait. So I gathered around some of my colleagues who also wanted the same thing, and we decided to set up the Malaysian Society of Clinical Psychology that was finally established in 2010.
2010.
Yes. So with regards to my journey, it was kind of like by accident. 11 years at the National University, practicing and teaching and researching. Of course, I burnt out. And I realized that in practice, there were lots of things that I didn't know. You know, I came from a Western training to a Southeast Asian setting, and I realized that there's so many things that made it difficult for me to apply my Western
Right
training
away.
on.
Right
Yeah.
away.
Yeah.
Without, modifying it or
Exactly.
making it
I was
culturally.
young and research is very new in
Yeah.
Malaysia. I decided, okay, I'm going to move to another university, which is Sunway University, a private uni, to be a regular Joe. I wanted to just be a regular person. I was a head of department for 11 years, and I was tired. I wanted to go back to being a regular person, regular academic, regular researcher to learn more.
To learn.
Yeah, and that lasted for about 3 years before I became a program leader and a head of department again.
Your leadership emerged again.
Somehow,
It
yes.
exuded, and people will find
Yeah,
out. You can't
yeah.
hide.
Yes,
Yeah.
because I think I make too much noise. That's the thing that I find I think can be helpful for our early career people. I find that a lot of early career professionals, psychologists, tend to, struggle, have difficulties, and that's fine. When you're just about to start up, there's lots of struggle. I would want to encourage any early career psychologist or graduate from any other discipline to have that leadership moment to step up and say,
Yeah.
I want this done. I can't do it myself.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask for help. Let's gather people around.
Yeah.
And that helped for me.
Yeah.
And from
The
from there,
proactiveness and the initiative.
exactly. And there's no need to be afraid of failing because you will fail.
Yeah.
Might as well fail early.
Exactly.
And you will make friends. One of the most important thing I find for anyone who's in early career is to make friends.
Yes.
Come to a conference like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lots of people around you can talk to.
Yeah.
Bump into any stranger, make friends with them.
Yeah.
And that's how we
grow.
grow, is how we integrate. And to me, it's a very important thing to do, especially for world peace.
Yes.
The more
Yes.
friends you have, the better the world is for you.
Yes.
And in terms of what you want to do in life, a lot of the things that happen to me happen by accident. I'm an
Correct.
accidental psychologist. Even my undergrad, I didn't even plan to do psychology. I had no idea what to do with my life when I was after school. Even now, I still don't know what to do with my life.
Yeah.
My boss just asked me that day what I want to do after this. I was like, I don't know. You give me a job to do, I'll do it. In between, I've got my ambitions to do things here and there, but nothing really that fixed, and I'm okay with it. Why? Because this is what early career, students, postgrad should think about is
being flexible, being fluid, being ready, being
exactly. And the readiness comes from knowing what kind of problems you can fix.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And being hopeful about the future, and
hopeful should also come together with knowing your ability to solve problems.
yes,
Because think about it, jobs are there because there are problems, right?
Exactly.
If you can solve the problem, you get the job.
correct,
Doesn't matter what kind of job it is.
correct,
Yeah.
correct,
So I came in knowing how to solve certain problems, and I got the job.
yeah,
It wasn't a job that I wanted.
yeah.
I needed a job to live.
Yeah. Sometimes that's very interesting that you brought it up. When I want to recruit people, I encounter a few people with a sense of entitlement. It's just because I need a job, you should give me a job.
Lots of people like that.
That will never happen in any stream for that matter, unless you show the ability that you can solve certain problems for me.
Yep.
And you are valuable for me. If you are valuable for me, I'll go to any length to hire.
Correct.
The bargain is like this.
Correct. Yes.
It's not just about the degree or the qualification that
Yeah.
you have. It's
Yeah.
about so many other things, the
Yep.
skill and the attitude that
Yep.
you bring to the table.
That's right.
And so, Alvin, such an inspiring story you had to share with me, and
Thank you.
I'm really, so many parts of your story I can relate to, because I also had some such experiences which made me grow and become successful. But with this kind of success, one thing that I think we learn is that life is uncertain
Oh, yeah.
fundamentally,
Yes.
and people are unpredictable, and that we are imperfect.
Yeah.
And these are the principles of psychotherapy as well.
Exactly.
And just because we are imperfect, we are always learning and we are growing and we are looking for people whom we can interact with, whom we can learn from. And I think that's how life progresses. How do you think, Alvin, is the future of psychology, since you also come from an Asian country, for people? What is the need of psychology and psychologists in Malaysia, and how are people warming up to it?
Okay. Well, psychology is becoming very popular in Malaysia. It's a buzzword. And what I'm very happy with is psychology is now being seen as not just about mental health. People are starting to recognize that psychology as a science is something that helps us solve problems again.
Yeah.
I like to go into problem solving
Yeah.
mode because
Yeah.
if we have tons of problems, and psychology is in any industry to solve problems, because psychology is a science of mind, brain, and behavior.
Yeah.
Let's just take the 17 Sustainable Development Goals
Yeah.
of the United
Yeah.
Nations.
Yeah.
Right? All these goals, in order for us to meet them, requires two main things: attitude change, behavior change. Who
Correct.
does that?
Correct.
Psychology graduates,
Yes,
right? Because we
yes.
know about attitude change when we know about behavior change. Applied psychology is the way to go for us to meet the goals.
Yeah.
As easy as
I
that.
I recently did a chapter on SDG 3 for a book, and we are now working for a chapter for SDG 6.
Yeah.
And I really agree with you that all these goals, when you look at them, we can contribute a lot. Some directly, some in some other ways, but yes. So I'm so glad to hear that. And I also feel that post-pandemic, especially, the awareness levels in India have gone really up. And very, very thankfully and fortunately, the social stigma attached to seeking help of a psychologist is also going down. And one thing that people are now open to is considering a psychologist not only for mental illness, but also for mental health.
Yes. I'm
You
glad
know?
you brought it up. Too many people think that mental health is mental illness. Yeah, two different things.
Yeah. So, for example, anybody can practice yoga for their physical fitness.
Yeah.
Similarly, anybody can learn therapeutic modalities like mindfulness for their mental wellness.
Yeah.
And why not? I mean, if we can prevent the clinical burden by providing intervention or prevention somewhere very much before. And so I am working on social emotional learning paradigm in my country, as you very well know. What is it that is happening in Malaysia regarding that? Do you have any emotional education programs for school children?
Yes, we do. We do have that. Our Ministry of Education has come up with a number of interventions, school-based interventions, two of which are actually being actively implemented. And they are also very welcoming of any other forms of interventions, usually through research. I'm doing one.
Wow.
I'm going into schools to provide resilient training to
To school children.
13 and 14-year-old students
Children.
in schools, because we find that when they're just entering secondary school, that's where you've got adjustment difficulties.
correct.
We want to intervene there, and it's something that our government is very, very much
Interested in.
Yeah, interested in, and they are very, very supportive.
Great.
So we do have such initiatives, and outside of schools also, we have the Ministry of Health focusing on basically mental health. Focusing on mental well-being.
Yeah, so that's very interesting. Is psychology regulated by the Ministry of Education or Ministry of Health or any other ministry in Malaysia?
Now that's a technicality that needs to be brought up as well, because psychology as a profession is not regulated.
In Malaysia?
Yeah, no. Anyone can call themselves a psychologist.
Oh.
Yes, and that's a very tricky thing. Yeah.
That's,
Yeah. But
problem in India as well. Psychologist is not a protected title. Clinical psychologist is.
Yes. So same in Malaysia. Clinical psychologist finally became a protected title in 2016. And the problem is enforcing it. We haven't got enforcement yet. That's going to take time because it takes a lot of resources and stuff like that. Yeah, so it's still a young profession. I'm going to be speaking on it this evening. We have got a symposium on psychology in Malaysia. So it's still a young profession that is growing, but because we're growing quite quickly, it's also something that we are focusing on by including the public with regards to education, because they have to know. The public has to know. Otherwise, it opens them up to a lot of risk of being conned by all kinds of individuals claiming to be psychologists or coaches.
Yeah,
when
that's a very safe thing to say.
Yes.
In
anyone
India,
can be a coach as well.
they end up calling themselves life coaches or anyone, or parenting coaches. I've seen parenting coaches, self-proclaimed, bloom up on Instagram like anything. And you would be amazed that qualified psychologists are now going to take training from those parenting coaches. Can you believe that?
Yeah. We have that in Malaysia. They're getting certified by boguses. It happens.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of people we need to educate, not just the public, but we need to educate the early career psychologists.
Yes.
Because when you're desperate, you go to anyone for training to get that piece of certificate. And I suppose that's where you were talking about entitlement.
Yes.
Right? People think that just because you have a cert, it entitles you to special treatment or a job.
Yeah. But it doesn't.
Your grades don't get you jobs. You get yourself a job.
Exactly. And even if you don't get yourself a job, the world is so big. We have got 1.4 billion people in India. We have just number of qualified psychologists you can count on hands. We have not more than 10,000. I can vouch for it. And so you can be an entrepreneur. You can create opportunities for yourselves.
Exactly.
And people are looking at psychology and making money, and the psychologists are left behind.
Well, that's where you need to innovate. You don't need to be a psychologist to solve people's problems.
Yeah.
Psychologists have problems, right? You have a company, you need tools.
Correct.
Who gets the tools for you?
Yes.
You will need help in getting the tools. So why not, someone find out how to get these tools and supply your company. And you can be a psychology graduate to do that, because then you have the know-how of what's required. Why not do that?
Correct.
Transport company, for example.
Yeah.
Lots of people don't have transport to go seek help. Can you start a transport company that does that? Ta-da!
Yeah.
You are actually providing help.
Correct. Yeah. Thank you so much, Alvin, for this chat that we had, and it was so interesting, and I would have loved to continue it, but I know that you have sessions to attend and I have as well. So thank you, and we'll catch up and we'll keep meeting. Thank you. Thank you so much.